Welcome back to Core Motivations Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Connolly. I'm a certified Enneagram coach and a Symbis marriage coach. Hey, if this is your first time joining us, I'm glad you found us and hope you keep coming back. And for those returning, I am overjoyed that you continue to commit to growth through this podcast week after week. So I have a little update for you. We have moved our podcast day to Mondays. We've been posting on Fridays. So if you haven't yet followed the podcast, it's okay. Do it today and you'll get notified when we put out a new weekly episode. And again, that's on Monday. Were you with us last week? My curiosity is beyond normal. Tell me the deets. Did you discover the ways you were raised differently from your siblings? Have you had a chance to reflect on how you may have been a product of this concept? You know, that kids who grew up in a multi child family experience, so lots of kids, I'm one of four, and how each of us experienced our parents differently. I could benefit from more discovery of this outcome. I think I'm gonna make some time, take some time, create some time to hang out with my sisters and ask some of these questions. So if you haven't listened to last week's Real Talk, stop, drop, and roll on over to last week's episode. Take a listen as our topic today links to that episode. So listen to that, then come back here and settle in as we bridge some gaps. So, this week, I want to dive into parenting style from the lens of each Enneagram type and how that differs from moms and dads. Well, let's get into it. So, the Enneagram 1 parent, generally speaking, you can expect them to be fair and consistent. They discipline firmly and decisively. They insist that their children have strong moral values and they take those responsibilities seriously. So, some of their strengths is that they can create organized, clean, and safe environments. They excel at teaching ethics and responsibility. They're generally calm in crises. But then on the other side of that, there are some challenges that a type 1 parent might have. You see, they struggle with perfectionism. So it makes them prone to strictness or rigidity. They often struggle with turning off that inner critic, which leads to frustration when things are messy and disobedient. They have this mantra that says it's not okay to make mistakes. Now, I know you might be thinking this sounds harsh, but it is the core of who they are. So let's take a little bit of a look at where does this mantra come from. Enneagram 1 parents are not necessarily coming from a place of malice. It is most likely that it's rooted in a deep-seated psychological or environmental factor. And so, a few of those causes for this reaction is this fear of consequences, that parents may believe that mistakes will lead to their child failing in school or in life or struggling to succeed. And it often is this driver of this high stakes culture. They also come from a space of that they're internalizing perfectionism. The parent, the type 1 parent, may have been raised in an environment where only excellence was accepted, or they are perfectionists themselves who equate their worth with their accomplishments. Also comes from a place of anxiety and control, where a chaotic life or fear of the unknown, it can cause type 1 parents to impose rigid, unrealistic standards on their children to feel a sense of control. And then finally, there's this misguided protection. that ones might believe that by demanding perfection, they're preparing their child for a tough world, not realizing that they're actually causing anxiety. And I read an article, it was a 2024 article out of American Psychology Association that speaks specifically to how these types of parenting can cause this anxiety. I will link to that article in the show notes. Helping ones to be self aware by reframing this mantra, it's not okay to make mistakes, to the following four. Mistakes are proof that I'm trying and learning. Mistakes are data, not failures. I can do hard things even if I mess up first. And we've said this before on core motivations. Practice makes progress, not perfection. And a bonus one, if it doesn't work, I can find a new way. So, how do we see this through the lens of an Enneagram 1 mom versus a 1 dad? So, moms often focus on the daily shoulds. They're meticulous managing of schedules and health and household in a very organized way. They may struggle with guilt when not living up to their own high standards of motherhood. They focus on ensuring children are well behaved and that the home is a moral, safe, and structured environment. Where Enneagram Type 1 dads are likely to be heavily involved in practical, tangible care, such as financial management. I can imagine them teaching that to a 5-year-old. Maintenance or rule enforcement. They often take on the role of disciplinary or the family hero for contrast, who fixes problems, sometimes appearing rigid or detached. They may focus on teaching children to be disciplined, hardworking, and responsible, sometimes to the point of being overly demanding. Now, again, this is about awareness, not judgment. It also aligns with last week's discussion of how each child in a multi children home, how they experience parents, especially when the parent is experiencing different things at different times in their adult journey as a parent. Here's a look at Enneagram 2 parenting style. Generally, they are good listeners and care deeply. They love their kids unconditionally. They are very warm and encouraging. They're affectionate and protective. So, what does it look like for a mom? Mom's strengths are highly empathetic, patient, and warm hearted. They create a strong sense of security and confidence in their children. Their superpower is the ability to sense and meet needs before they are verbalized. Type 2 moms are more frequently associated with nurturing or martyr stereotype, which brings us to weaknesses. They can become overly involved, or as we've heard before, helicopter parent. I talked a little bit about that for me as a parent with my daughter. As either an overly involved or helicopter parent, they often struggle to set boundaries. They risk becoming that martyr mom, meaning neglecting their own needs and then in turn harboring resentment. I have to say that if I'm being truthful in general, I struggle with that a lot as a two, not just a mom, but as a person. Some common pitfalls that an Enneagram 2 mom is that they may struggle to let their children face obstacles independently, often playing this fixer role. An Enneagram 2 dad. They often are seen as warm and giving, Though sometimes their care can feel intense or, in unhealthy cases, over involved. Type 2 behavior in dads might sometimes be confused with a type 6 due to that over involvement. And if you're not totally familiar with a type 6, I want to encourage you to go back and listen to some of the previous podcast where we dive into what a type 6 is. So some of the weaknesses is that they have this potential for over involvement or guilt tripping. If they feel their acts of service are not appreciated, it causes them to bring that up. And if they're unhealthy, they might use their acts of gifts or service to control or create dependency. And I thought it was kind of interesting to point out with twos the perspective of children. So, children of type 2 parents often feel deeply loved, but may also feel smothered or burdened by the sheer amount of help provided. So, twos just aren't giving enough space for their children to figure it out on their own. There are so many ways or paths that we can take this information. So if you're interested in diving even deeper, let's get you in on a free half-hour meetup with me and we can talk about some of these details. I will link my email in the show notes. You can also DM me on Instagram. So who's next? The Enneagram 3. They are consistent, dependable, and loyal parents. However, they can struggle between desiring success and desiring time with their family. They expect their kids to be responsible and accomplished, successful and well organized. The Enneagram Type 3 parents, remember, they are the achievers. They are generally driven, organized, optimistic because they're aiming to raise successful and hard-working children. So while both moms and dads share this core desire to be admired and successful, moms often feel this added pressure of creating a perfect, polished image of family success, where type 3 dads might lean into the provider role through a higher career output. So here's some characteristics that are similar for both mom and dad, that they are image conscious, meaning that they both focus heavily on how their family is perceived by others. And they struggle to express vulnerability, focusing instead on practical solutions. So they're kind of known as the tiger parent, that they're both prone to high expectations for their children. Type 3's parenting style, mom. So she is highly efficient, nurturing through creating opportunities, very motivating, and adaptable to different parenting situations. 3 moms are goal oriented, so they're more likely to use tools like star charts to keep children on track. I have to admit, I used those charts and they were very helpful. A 3 mom may struggle with projecting this perfect image, feeling that their children's behavior is a direct reflection of their own. So they may push children to succeed to avoid the fear of failure. So, what about a 3 dad? Their strengths are they're dedicated, reliable, and they model a strong work ethic where they focus on providing and teaching children to be competent and competitive. However, they may be challenged by appearing too distant or overly focused on work, leading to this perception that they are more interested in success than emotional connection. So, in order to help with growth in these particular areas, It would be good for a 3 dad to take time to be present and recognize that love is not based on productivity or achievements. Another growth area is learning to move from doing to being and connecting with children emotionally rather than just managing their achievements. So that's the parenting style of an Enneagram 3 for mom and dad. So, what about type 4? They are supportive, encourage their children to become who they are, that they draw out the creativity and originality in their kids. They can be overly critical and protective. They're usually very good with children when they aren't hyper focused on their inner world. Fours create cozy, personalized homes and fill their children's lives with art, music, and imagination. They encourage children to express a full range of emotions, making their children feel safe by being vulnerable. When stressed, however, they tend to retreat into themselves, which can make them emotionally unavailable, even if physically present, even if they're right there. So they may struggle with the mundane aspects of parenting, such as constant daily routines. So, what does it look like for a mom? Often they feel things deeply, so much so that it hurts. And they're deeply invested in their children's emotional well being. Some of the struggles that they might have is with validation and can be prone to self doubt, wondering if they're good enough, or conversely, feeling their children are an extension of their own unique identity. And so, because they are prone to depression and emotional exhaustion, they need a self care emphasis, requiring a significant alone time or creative outlets to stay healthy and present. Sometimes I think I forget to breathe. My goodness. Okay, so for moms, they have a hyper focus on uniqueness. They tend to push their children to be authentic and special and to avoid being ordinary. Dads can be very playful and encouraging of their children's unique talents, often fostering a strong individualistic streak in their kids. They may share their emotional intensity, a wide range of emotions with their children, sometimes to the point of involving kids in adult dramas. That's not a good part. I would even consider that as the unhealthy aspect of a 4 dad, where their emotional sensitivity might even manifest as moodiness or inconsistency, alternating between being very involved and withdrawing. They might reject traditional father roles, creating their own unconventional way of connecting with children, like in depth artistic projects. So, quick recap. 4 moms tend to struggle more with the anxiety of feeling not enough, intense emotional connection, where in contrast, 4 dads tend to struggle more with managing their moody, unpredictable, withdrawn nature in favor of consistent present engagement. So, next, Enneagram 5. They're often kind, perceptive, and devoted parents. They can be authoritarian and demanding at times. They may expect more intellectual achievement than is developmentally possible of their kids, which causes them to be intolerant to too many emotions expressed. So, what are some commonalities between a 5 mom and a dad? Well, they're intellectually focused, so they foster a love of learning, often engaging children in educational activities, documentaries, and in depth explanations. They have this need for solitude, so 5 parents require significant uninterrupted alone time to recharge as they have a limited, careful, managed supply of emotional and physical energy. They also share this objective problem solving technique, meaning that they are excellent, rational, and calm in crisis, often acting as a sounding board for their kids. And then they can also have this low emotional expressiveness. They may find it difficult to connect on a deeply emotional level, sometimes appearing detached or prioritizing facts over feelings. They are also known as the why parent. They love explaining how things work and may frequently use the phrase, well, actually. I can think of a few people in my circle that say things like that. But also, upon reflection, when you and I are certain that something is the way it is, we find this need to prove the truth. We can be correctors of the misinformed way of thinking, the thinking that someone has about something that is not right, using the phrase, well, actually, let the correction lesson begin. Okay, so what about type 5 moms? Type 5 moms have this default parent syndrome, meaning they feel trapped in the role of the default parent. It can lead them to severe energy depletion and at times what might look like as mom rage. So when they can't escape for that solitude, they can really struggle. They might even struggle with the societal expectations, the traditional motherhood, where they are expected of being constantly nurturing or involved, often setting hard boundaries to protect their energy. They may bond their children through shared interests, projects, or quiet activities rather than overt, loud affection. This can be seen as a non traditional bonding. 5 moms, they struggle with overcoming martyrdom. They often need to learn that taking breaks is not selfish, but necessary. Finding a village helps them thrive rather than trying to do it all by themselves. So, what about dads? They have this fixer mentality. They often focus on helping their children improve and solve problems, sometimes focusing too much on the objective, the analytical side of a situation, rather than the emotional, which can feel cold to children. They may struggle with the noisy, chaotic nature of children, which leads to controlling the environment. They can feel overwhelmed, so they might lean into their eight wing or become overly controlling of their environment to conserve energy. So, what are some key challenges for a 5 parent? They can over explain things. They may overwhelm children with just too many details. They may neglect the emotional needs of their children in favor of practical ones. It's a emotional detachment style. And then, of course, 5 parents often feel guilty for needing to withdraw, which can lead a cycle of over engaging and then burning out. So this guilt that happens to them. As an Enneagram 2, I relate to the guilt aspect. I know I need to quiet my thoughts and my body, and yet if I do, I feel guilty, like I shouldn't or don't deserve this time away. So before moving on, have you experienced any of these behaviors and or do you relate to any of these parenting style types? Can you relate to this particular struggle, the guilt aspect? Okay, on to Enneagram 6. They are loving, nurturing, and have a strong sense of duty, loyalty, reluctant to give kids independence due to their many anxieties. They can have a constant undertone of worry that their children will get hurt. So, what are some common traits shared by the 6 moms and dads? They're known as having this guardian mentality where they both are deeply loyal and protective, acting as a mama or a papa bear. They excel at identifying potential dangers before they happen, Both can lean toward anxious, controlling, or conversely high proactive behavior to manage fear. They are both likely to rely on routines, rules, and sometimes external authority figures like experts or teachers to ensure they are doing the right thing. So, what about moms specifically? Their strengths are that they are incredibly nurturing, protective, and dependable. They are planners who pack for every scenario: first aid kits, snacks, contingency plans. This might be most moms. Well, at least that's what I do. I am always prepared, even if I don't use it. I want to not need it, but have it, right? Challenge. Five moms, they're often challenged with being too overprotective and projecting anxiety, worst case scenario thinking onto children. Their focus is creating a secure, predictable environment to keep the family safe. So, what about dads? They focus on security, but often channel their energy into providing for the family and building a solid, trustworthy structure. Their strengths are highly reliable, responsible, and practical. They are committed to their role and foster cooperation within the family. Some of their challenges are that they can become anxious or overly cautious. They must struggle with analysis paralysis, or if counterphobic, they may act impulsively to confront threats, leading to inconsistent rules. So their focus is being the steady rock for the family and preparing their children for potential dangers by teaching them self defense or critical thinking. That's in contrast to paralysis that happens to them. These are great strategies for everyone, especially in today's day, right? We can't just daydream on our way to the car or in the house. We must be aware of our surroundings. So, having these skills of self defense or critical thinking, it can help keep us present in each situation. So let's look at the parenting style for sevens. They are often enthusiastic, generous, and affirming. They want their children exposed to many adventures in life. And at times, they may not be very attentive to their kids and family if they're too busy making plans and enjoying their own life. We know that sevens are the fun anything, but also they're the fun parent. They're excellent at planning exciting events, telling stories, and bringing joy to childhood. They often rely on good enough parenting, focusing on enjoyment over perfection. They may struggle with the mundane aspects of parenting, such as cleaning, cooking, or rigid schedules, trying to avoid pain or boredom. Their high energy can be overwhelming for quieter, more introverted children. Sevens naturally enjoy taking risks. So if their children are not the same way as parents, type 7 parents may have to adjust. They tend to be the good cop or fun parent in a parenting relationship, which the other parent can view as unfair. So, what about 7 moms? Well, they want to share their love of life with their kids and often foster a sense of curiosity and optimism. They are the Peter Pan mom, acting more as a playmate, relating well to children, and resisting the boring aspects of traditional strict motherhood. They may feel pressure to handle household management while wanting to escape into fun activities. So, because of this, some children of 7 moms might feel that parents' need for fun and adventure is more important than the child's emotional needs. And in turn, they struggle with limits as they may find it difficult to set boundaries or handle negative emotions in their children. What about dads? They are known as the spontaneous dad. They are often seen as playful, risk-taking, and exciting, providing provide a never a dull moment childhood. With childlike perspective, they step into a child's world easily, playing games and sharing adventures. Be They may be great at engaging in hobbies, sports, or music with their kids, but might struggle with daily responsibilities like homework or chores, very easily distracted. If unhealthy, though, they may avoid parenting responsibilities altogether and complain about how their hobbies are being interrupted or become too busy for their children. So often, the good cop, similar to seven moms, they tend to be permissive. Good cop in a two parenting household can cause conflict with a more structured parent. Okay, we got two more. Enneagram 8 parenting style. They are often loyal, caring, and highly involved. Sometimes they can be overprotective. They can be demanding, controlling, rigid, and intimidating. 8 moms, they are intensely protective, often acting as their ultimate advocate. They often favor a tough love approach, emphasizing accountability and preparing children for a harsh world. They are described as energetic, sometimes dominant, and need to manage their tendency to control the household. 8 moms may struggle to express vulnerability, sometimes viewing sensitivity in their children as a weakness, though they are deeply caring. So, what about 8 dads? They are seen as strong, protective leaders who provide stability through their presence. They encourage their children to be tough, confront challenges directly, and stand up for themselves. Like 8 moms, dads can be intense, which can sometimes come across as intimidating or scary to children, requiring them to learn to soften their approach. They may push children to handle difficulty on their own to build resilience, which can sometimes be perceived as cold if not with affection. And last but not least, Enneagram 9. They are very supportive, kind, and warm. They can sometimes give in to their children's wishes when they need to say no. They can place too much focus on their children and lose themselves in the process of parenting. So, 9 moms, also known as the calm nurturer, they are incredibly empathetic, patient, non judgmental. They allow their children to be who they are. They are excellent non interpreting listeners who can see all sides of a situation. They may struggle with setting firm boundaries and can become overwhelmed by or permissive with their children's demands to avoid conflict. This sort of keeping the peace at their own expense, potentially neglecting their own needs and feelings in favor of family harmony. That makes it kind of difficult, I think. So, what about an Enneagram 9 dad? They're known as the easygoing guide. Their strengths are gentle, creative, and often possess a dry sense of humor. They're adaptable, making themselves easy to talk to. They might avoid the role of disciplinarian, preferring to leave that to the other partner. They can sometimes tune out or become withdrawn, stubborn, if they feel their peace is threatened, which can cause this common trap becoming too passive. I know that I didn't share a whole lot about eights and nines, but I would be glad to go further into that. Let's talk more about that. Now, I want to take a quick look at which parenting styles match well. So, the complementary strengths. So, a structured type 1 or 6 often pairs well with a flexible, fun loving type like a 7 or a 9, balancing structure with spontaneity. Type 2s and 4s, they often excel at connecting deeply with children's emotions, creating this emotional connection. Where type 3s and 5s, they're excellent at fostering achievement, curiosity, and skill building as their focus is on development. So here's some other good parenting style pairings. Type 1 and type 2, the reformer and the helper, they create a balance of strong boundaries, responsibility, and unwavering emotional support and warmth. Type 6, type 9, the loyalist and the peacemaker, they combined through safety, conscious preparation with a calm, accepting, and non reactive environment. Type 7 and type 2 or 9, the 7, the enthusiast. The 7 brings joy and adventure, while the 2s and the 9s provide this nurturing, consistent care and emotional grounding 7s might miss. Type 4, the individualists. Type 4 and the type 5 or 9. 4 is being emotional and a deep sensitivity, which pairs well with the stability of 9s and the knowledge-seeking nature of a 5. So here's a couple things to help to level up parenting. Start by understanding your Enneagram parenting style. In turn, this can help your child as it creates a more intentional, emotional, stable, and empathetic environment. So another thing to help with this leveling up is when we move out of this autopilot stress reactions, it enables us to pause, avoid imposing your own personality onto them, and instead adapt to their unique individual needs. Now, this is us as parents leveling up for our kids. You can adjust your approach based on what motivates or stresses your specific child rather than using a one-size-fits-all method. When you reduce projection, it helps you to stop trying to make your child a mini me, allowing them to develop their own personality rather than following yours. And lastly, with better communication, removing your own bias, it can help bridge communication gaps, allowing you to see situations from your child's perspective. I hope that you have many takeaways today. And of course, while our focus was on parenting style, it can help you in many ways. Maybe it's the way you react to your partner or spouse. Maybe it changes the way you respond to your parents, whether as an adult child or younger. Either way, these tidbits of information, it can change all of our actions and reactions in all of our relationships. Parenting style is far more than just the way we react to something or a situation. It is how we are leading and teaching the people we are responsible for, who need us the most, our children. So go out and continue to learn to be the best version of you. And now, the legal stuff. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. This podcast is not a substitute for medical care. The materials, movies, videos, or books referred to in this podcast are recommendations only. The views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the podcast host. That's me or sponsors. Join me each week as we dive into all things Enneagram, self-care ideas, self-love patterns, and rhythms, share ideas from other reputable authors, doctors, current events, and of course, my favorite podcasters. A big thank you to you for being here with me today on Core Motivations Podcasts. Now we're counting on you to help spread the word about this little corner at Core Motivations. So hit the follow button, share this episode with someone, and please leave a review. You can find me, Michelle, on Instagram at coremotivations_coach or email michelle@coremotivationscoach.com. So let me leave you with this. Until next time, and as always, I'm rooting for you.